Welcome into this Week 5 edition of Buffalo Bills Weekly, where we give you the 411 on everything going on at One Bills Drive. He's Chris Brown, I'm Maddy Glab. In this week's episode, we'll dive into how Buffalo can learn from their first loss. We'll preview their Week 5 matchup against the Texans, and we're giving a little love to Houston. YouTuber Ryan Trahan tells us what he thinks of the Texans' start to the season. Chris, Buffalo was humbled in their first loss of the season to the Baltimore Ravens. It was a 25-point loss. It was Buffalo's first loss in the regular season by more than a touchdown since Week 11 of the 2021 season. These losses don't happen often for the Bills.
No, they don't. And you'd have to go back 3 years to see it. And they had the longest streak in the league. I think it was 43 games without losing a game by more than a single possession. So, yeah, you don't see it all that often. And let's hope we don't see it very often again.
It was easy to see a lot of these problems in their first loss stem from the line of scrimmage. On offense, quarterback Josh Allen said his communication between himself and the offensive line could have been better. Allen was in a rush to make plays. He was pressured on several dropbacks and sacked even 3 times. Heading into that game, Allen had just been sacked twice in 3 games. How can better communication lead to cleaner play?
Yeah, they have to get the protection calls right. I think when you see him getting pressured on 15 of 34 dropbacks, that's not just the other team out scheming you. That's protection errors pre-snap between him and Connor McGovern. And good for him for putting it on himself, saying I've got to be cleaner in the pre-snap protection calls, whether you got to make a check because your initial call isn't going to block everything up. It's on them to communicate with one another, and then for Connor to communicate down the line and get everything buttoned up so you have hats on hats and Josh isn't scrambling around trying to make a playoff script.
I was surprised the communication was an issue in this game because it had been so clean heading into this game. Also, center Connor McGovern had said in the offseason, we want to be really effective in our communication this season. We're having running backs and wide receivers in our meetings with us so that once we're at the line of scrimmage, calls are easy for everybody.
Right, and I think this was the first time, too, where they were in an environment where it was loud, difficult to communicate. They were going on silent count for most of the game. If you remember their previous road game in Miami, they jumped on the Dolphins early, took the crowd out of the game, and that was not the case Sunday night in Baltimore, as we remember.
The Ravens offense had their way with Buffalo's defense. They were averaging 7.9 yards per play. They accumulated 271 rushing yards. Heading into the game, the Bills were just allowing an average of 118 rushing yards per game. The defensive line was flat out physicaled in this one. How can the defensive line be more physical in Week 5?
Yeah, being more physical is mostly an attitude thing, so they've just got to bear down and bring it this week. I will give credit to Dorian Williams. I thought he played the most physical game on the defensive side of the ball for the Bills and really brought the wood. He had a couple of really hard hits on Derrick Henry, who's a hard running back to stand up. Balin Spector, much like Josh Allen, put it on himself after the game. He admitted there were some snaps where he didn't have everybody lined up correctly to block it up, fill the gaps, and so some gap integrity was compromised. First play of the game was a gap integrity issue. So you look at that has to get cleaned up. And then I think taking it a step further, as McDermott said after the game, it comes down to fundamentals, Maddy. I had them on count for 11 missed tackles in that game. Guys falling off, not using proper technique. That has to be worked on in practice leading into this Texans game, or you're going to have a lot of guys getting yards after the catch if you don't tackle fundamentally sound.
We'll see if Buffalo can grow from this one. Don't go anywhere because coming up, we'll preview the Week 5 matchup against the Houston Texans, and you'll hear the best press conferences from the week.
When we return, Maddy Glab interviews YouTube star Ryan Trahan in this week's episode of You Heard. And then later, catch the press conference highlights in Soundbite Roundup.
What's up, guys? This is YouTuber Ryan Trahan, and you just heard.
Welcome into another episode of You Heard, where we feature athletes, celebrities, and influencers who showcase their NFL fandom. In today's episode, we have YouTuber, vlogger, and entrepreneur Ryan Trahan joining us, who's a huge Texans fan. Ryan, thanks for being on with us, and you're rocking the jersey, of course. I forgot my Bills jersey. I should have put one on for this interview, but we got the logo, the big shield right behind us, so repping Bills in a certain way here. I want to ask you, when did you become a Texans fan?
Okay, so I grew up in Southwest Houston. So basically, upon birth, I became a Texans fan. However, I think I need to look up the exact year that they were established because I think it was like I was like 3 years old whenever the Texans actually became a team. So that's probably the official date upon their inception. It's been a long road to becoming a competitive team, but it's fun. It's amazing.
I see you have something on your chalkboard behind you. I don't know. I don't know if that score's right, Ryan.
No, I got the script for this week. So I actually yeah, I got the first script.
Hmm.
It got released and I heard this is gonna be the score. So
Yeah, how'd you get that script? Because I feel like the NFL gave me the script and the scores actually flipped.
oh no. That was a typo. I got Roger texted me actually, so
Oh, you and Raj, just good old friends.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
Do you know anything about the Buffalo Bills? They've got this quarterback named Josh Allen who's pretty rock solid and, you know, sometimes does some incredible things when he's on the field.
Yeah. No, I think Josh Allen is awesome. I really like his story because in college he wasn't the most accurate, but he's got a crazy arm, he's athletic. And I think that people like Josh set the roadmap to show that oh, you can actually see potential in a player and spend time to let him progress. Because I don't know if you guys have seen, but like with Bryce Young recently, he got benched after like a year and a couple games. Like it was kind of discouraging to see. And when you have stories like Josh Allen in the league, it's like we should just kind of like keep developing them, let them learn. And obviously, Josh is he's just a different animal for sure. He's so fun to watch. I'm a little bit nervous for this weekend just because of him, but yeah, I think the Bills are actually a really fun team, and it's been cool to see how he's adapted without Stephon Diggs, even though he's on the Texans now. He
You
seems
got him
he
now.
seems to be
That's
doing pretty well.
lucky.
Yeah.
Well, if we talk about this game on Sunday against the Texans, what are your expectations for this matchup early in the season between two really good teams?
It's interesting. I think are we both 3-1? Are the Bills
Yeah,
3-1?
yeah.
Okay. Well, someone's gonna be 4-1. I think it's gonna be the Texans. However, I do think the Texans have had very sloppy play recently, like penalties, flags, false starts. They know it. I think that they can play a lot better than they've already played. We've had some close games recently, but I know the Bills have absolutely dominated. Like they beat the Jags by I mean, how many points? It was crazy. So I think it's gonna be a heavy hitting game. Hopefully we have Joe Mixon back and we have a chance in the running game, but hopefully it's a good one.
Yeah, I'm expecting it to be close just because we know what's on both sides of the ball. I was a little bit surprised to see when I was looking up stats that the Texans were only averaging like right under 20 points per game with a quarterback like CJ and wide receivers like Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs and Joe Mixon. I thought you guys would be up in the top 10. So, fingers crossed that, the number is under 20 points in this game and maybe the Bills can be over that.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll be right back on You Heard. Stay tuned. Well, Ryan, let's get into what you're known for. If you go over to your YouTube page, you have more than 17 million subscribers and more than 3.5 billion views, which is a huge number. So kudos to you for being able to accumulate that type of following. That's so awesome. And it's easy to see why people watch, why people follow, because your videos just suck you in. I was on your YouTube channel just clicking around the other day and like an hour goes by and I'm like, oh my gosh, it is so easy to watch your videos. You're known for your penny challenge where you travel across the country in 30 days with just one penny and you use the funds from that penny to get across the country. Now, the really cool part about this is that you did it to draw attention to and to raise money for a charity. But how did you get the idea to start the penny challenge?
Okay, so I lived in a really small town in Texas, and I had this idea because I had the opportunity to work a summer job. Pretty much everyone in my small town worked at a water park, and so I did the water park one summer. It was super fun, but the next summer I was a senior and I'm about to go to college. It's like my last summer, and I'm like, I really want to do something where I post YouTube videos because I grew up watching YouTube. The only TV I watched really was football, sports. and Shark Tank. So I love like entrepreneurship. I really do like love seeing people build businesses and stuff. And so I wanted to try to like just do some hustling. And this concept of starting from a penny I thought was really inspiring. Pretty much everyone can find a penny on the side of the road, but if you can find a way to turn a penny into $1,000, that would be magical. So that's where it really started, was when I was in high school. I set out a goal in the summer to turn a penny into $1,000, just buying and selling things. A lot of it was like buying video games in bulk from people on like Facebook Marketplace and selling them individually on eBay. So it was a real hustle. But that kind of taught me like, wow, there's so much meaning in a penny, that it's something we all have. It's something we all have access to, and it's really just like, what can you turn that into? Even in my small town, I was able to do that with the resources of like the internet and stuff. And so further on, it became more of like an entertainment thing. So like you mentioned, like crossing America, starting from one penny, it was like this big ambitious thing where we also wanted to post 30 days in a row on YouTube, which in itself would be a really difficult challenge, but while also crossing America, trying to make money in real time, buying flights, shelter and food and stuff. And the biggest motivation for me, like you said, was to raise money for Feeding America. I thought it was a really perfect opportunity, like give the YouTube platform something exciting that felt fresh, but also do it for a purpose. Like people love to rally behind good. And I think, my YouTube channel, that's really my goal at the end of the day, is to highlight people, the kindness of others, and just show that like there's so much generosity. If you're just walking down the street, it's easy to kind of turn a cold shoulder to pretty much everyone. But what that series taught me is that if you if you were to just interact with most people would be kind. And I think the world kind of needs that. And that's why that series is so special to me, for sure.
All right, what are you working on right now? What can fans expect from you next?
So biggest things I'm working on, we're working on more travel videos. So I've got some really fun different like hotels, restaurants, and Airbnbs that I'm planning on going to. We've done some fun research to find some really cool places, but also Joyride. I've been working on a candy brand, and we're into Target, and we're also working on getting into other stores in the future next year. I've learned that the world of retail moves much slower than the world of content creation. So that's been pretty interesting to see. But those are my two big focuses right now. It's just making great candy and making great videos.
I mean, who doesn't love some great candy? So we'll definitely have to keep a lookout in our local stores here in Buffalo. To finish this off, Ryan, do you have a hot Texans take?
I would say that's probably my hot take. I think the Texans
agree.
are due for a blowout.
That is a hot take.
That's a hot take. I think my big hot take is I think the Texans, CJ Stroud's going to win a Super Bowl. And I don't even think that's really that hot of a take because he's been so good. But I've been saying that since early last year. So that was hot. It's getting slightly lukewarm.
I'm fine with that happening in a world where the Bills already have a Super Bowl. CJ can win his after.
Okay. I'm sure that could work out. That sounds fair.
Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us about this huge matchup coming up on Sunday. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maddy. So nice to meet you. Good luck.
When we return, catch the highlights from this week's press conferences in Soundbite Roundup.
Yeah, I think they got a couple of ends that are really fast. They do a good job of getting to the quarterback. In the back end, obviously everyone knows the corner they got in Derek Stingley. Great young player who seemingly makes plays on the ball week in and week out. So got to make sure we're aware of what we're doing. And again, sticking to the game plan of what we got. And I, trust Joe and the offensive staff to put together something good. And it's our job to go out there and execute it.
Each week you watch the tape and make those corrections and adjustments, but you also have to move forward and look to Houston this week. So it's not the same defense and same team you're playing, so you can't get too hung up on the pass game, but you also have to make those obvious corrections. Just putting people in different positions and positions for them to succeed in what they excel at and what their good traits and qualities are. And then at the same time, being able to put different people in all those spots as interchangeable pieces.
For sure, they got a lot of guys who arguably can be a number one receiver on the team. So it definitely opens it up. You can't really go in there and sit here and say, "Oh, I'm gonna double this guy or double this guy," because you're putting somebody else in the dilemma. So it's got guys that you gotta win matchup. You gotta win your matchup and just compete.
For sure, yeah. They're basing out of a wide zone scheme, one cut, get downhill, cut back, boot game, play action, that type of stuff. So they've got a really good offense, a lot of good playmakers, and guys that Seven get the ball to, and they're explosive. So it'll be a good test for us.
We're a great offensive line, and we play well together. Josh trusts us, and we trust Josh. We treat Josh as our little brother that we have to protect. I think every week in this league, we're going to come across great defensive linemen. I'm a left tackle, so I usually got to block the best pass rusher or the best player, so it's all a part of it.
I feel like they have a really functional offense all around. They can run the ball, pass the ball. They got really good receivers, so it's going to be a challenge, but we're up for it.
Yeah, very talented football team, very talented in this case offensively. Extremely talented on the perimeter, of their offense with the receiving core, as you mentioned, and it's really hard to stop all of them, right? Because you don't have enough guys to double team all of them there. So that we'll have our work cut out for us. Steph's playing at a high level. He was a really good player here and competitive, as you guys know, and he's highly competitive on tape as I watch, and playing at a high level. So it'll be a big challenge for us.
Hopefully, yeah, I'll say what's up, and hopefully it's the favors return. I'm sure it will be, so we'll see.
Welcome back into Buffalo Bills Weekly. A Week 5 matchup against the Houston Texans is on deck for the Bills. The coaching staff said there's several lessons that this team can learn from after suffering their first loss of the season. When it comes to the offense, what that looks like is staying on schedule, not getting into situations like 3rd and long. The Bills were 3 of 13 on 3rd down conversions against Baltimore. How can the offense successfully stay on schedule?
Well, if they can just use their run game through the deeper sections of the game, I think they'll be okay. James Cook was running the ball well against Baltimore last week, but the problem was things got lopsided on the scoreboard and they had to throw more, and that makes you one-dimensional. You're more susceptible to pass pressure, which we saw in that game. So I think getting James Cook off to a good start in the run game will go a long way to keeping them on schedule, because this is a good offensive line that has blocked well for James. James has great vision, so you stay on schedule there. It makes you more unpredictable in terms of the play calls, and then you can move the ball down the field, stick it in the end zone. That's the plan here. Use James to get into manageable down and distance, and then let Joe Brady cook up whatever he has in mind.
When it comes to getting in the end zone, this team is one of the best at the NFL doing so. They're doing it at 73% of the time, scoring touchdowns in the red zone. And the Houston Texans are one of the worst in the league at defending teams in the red zone. When it comes to what the defense is going to have to face and get ready for in the Texans, it's a top-tier wide receiver group. One of those wide receivers leads the NFL in receiving yards right now with 489. His name is Nico Collins, and another receiver is very familiar with the Buffalo Bills. He got traded by the Bills in the offseason. That's Stephon Diggs. He really understands this defense. What does the defense's plan need to be to stop a talented group like this one?
Yeah, I think you're going to probably hear Sean McDermott talk all week about stopping the run game first, making them one-dimensional. We'll have to see what the availability of Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce are. They've been out for the last couple of weeks with injuries. They might get back this week, so that would make their run game more formidable. But look, with the receiving core that they have and can put out on the field, I'm curious to see what the coverage calls look like for the Bills. I'm not saying they got to man up necessarily, but I think they have to plaster. This is a defense that's going to have to force C.J. Stroud to go to number 2 and number 3 in his progression reads. That should allow them to marry coverage with the rush, and then they should be able to get heat on Stroud and make some of his decisions difficult.
We talked about how it starts at the line of scrimmage. Well, Texans quarterback C.J. Stroud has been sacked 13 times to start the season. That's the 4th most in the league. Hopefully our defensive line can get some pressure, make life a little bit easier for the guys on the back end.
Right, and again, it's marrying the pressure with the coverage. They might not get there right away every time, but if the coverage is good on the back end, you have what's called a coverage sack. And we've seen some of those already from the Bills this season. So hopefully they can rattle CJ a little bit. I know he's a calm, cool, and collected quarterback. Very little rattles him, but if you can get some hits on him early, you know, he might be seeing some ghosts back there through the course of the game.
The Bills have a chance at a bounce-back victory after their first loss. Head coach Sean McDermott is 18-5 following losses since the 2019 season. That's a pretty good record.
Yeah, and I think Coach McDermott has proven this over the years. He and his staff are very good at course-correcting their team after a loss. And I think the players coming out of this Baltimore game, just in discussions amongst themselves, have said, look, maybe we got a little complacent with 2 easy victories back-to-back. Maybe we didn't put all of the prep time in that we usually do. Let's get back on task and make sure we're almost over-prepared for this one.
You can catch the game this Sunday, October 6th on CBS and Paramount+. Chris will be on the radio with the call, so to hear him and Bills legend Eric Wood, you can listen to WGR 550. I think offensive coordinator Joe Brady said it best. The best thing following a loss is the fact that you have a game next week. We'll see if the Bills can get one back in the win column with a Week 5 matchup against the Texans. We want to thank you for tuning in to Buffalo Bills Weekly. For Chris Brown, I'm Maddy Glab. We'll see you next time.